Dear students, welcome to today's lesson on the poem Aunt Jennifer's Tiger by Adrienne Rich. Today we will explore this poem deeply, line by line, so that by the end of this session you will understand not only what each word means, but also what it suggests, what it symbolizes, and what the poet truly wants to tell us about life, art, and freedom. Let's begin with the background of the poet. Adrienne Rich was an American poet, essayist, and feminist thinker born in Baltimore in 1929. She grew up in a world where women were expected to obey social norms, stay quiet, and accept the authority of men. But Adrienne Rich believed that poetry should not only be beautiful, it should also be truthful. She used poetry as a voice of protest against gender inequality, racism, and injustice. Her poems are powerful expressions of a woman's desire for identity and freedom. Now, about the poem. Aunt Jennifer's Tigers was written in the early years of the women's movement. It shows the life of a woman, Aunt Jennifer, who tries to express her suppressed emotions through her art, that is, embroidery. The poem describes how she creates images of bold and fearless tigers, which represent what she herself wishes to be. So, while Aunt Jennifer is timid and afraid, her tigers are strong, confident, and free. Let us now move to the poem itself and explore it line by line. Stanza 1, line 1. Aunt Jennifer's tigers prance across a screen. The poem begins with a vivid image of Aunt Jennifer's art. She is sewing or embroidering a piece of fabric, a tapestry, or a screen on which she has made bright tigers. The word prance, it means to move or jump in a lively, proud, and graceful way. So we can imagine the tigers on her cloth almost coming alive, very energetic and confident. These tigers represent what Aunt Jennifer admires, that is, boldness, pride, and power. Coming to line 2, bright topaz, denizens of a world of green. Here, Adrienne Rich uses a beautiful color image. The tigers are described as bright topaz. Topaz, which is a precious stone of golden yellow color. So, the tigers are shining like jewels against a green background, or we can say a green forest. The word denizens, it means inhabitants or dwellers. So these golden tigers live naturally and freely in their forest world full of color and life. The world of green stands for nature, freshness, and freedom. It represents a place without fear or oppression. Line 3. They do not fear the men beneath the tree. Now the poet shows the courage of these tigers. They are not scared of the men who might be standing under the trees. This image is very symbolic. In real life, Aunt Jennifer is afraid of the men around her especially her husband. But her tigers, the creation of her imagination, have no fear of men at all. This contrast between Aunt Jennifer and her tigers is one of the key ideas of the poem. Line 4. They pace in sleek, chivalric certainty. The tigers walk proudly and confidently. The word sleek means smooth and elegant. Chivalric here means noble, brave, and gallant. Like the knights in old stories who fought for honor and justice. Certainty, it means confidence and assurance. So, the tigers move with dignity and courage. They are graceful, yet strong, powerful, yet noble. They symbolize the inner strength and self respect that Aunt Jennifer secretly desires but cannot express in her real life. The entire first stanza therefore shows a world of freedom and beauty, the world of Aunt Jennifer's imagination, where her tigers live proudly without any fear. Stanza 2. Now the poem moves from the tigers to Aunt Jennifer herself. Adrienne Rich brings us back to reality, which is very different from the free world of art. Line 5. Aunt Jennifer's fingers fluttering through her wool. The image changes to Aunt Jennifer sitting with her embroidery frame, working with wool and needle. Her fingers are fluttering, means they tremble or shake like a small bird's wings. This trembling shows her weakness, her nervousness, or perhaps her old age. But it also suggests her mental state. She is anxious, frightened, and lacking in freedom. Her physical movement reflects the fear that dominates her entire life. Line 6. Find even the ivory needle hard to pull. Even though the embroidery needle is light, it is made of ivory, a smooth material, but yet she finds it difficult to move. This shows that the burden of her life has made her so weak that even a simple act of sewing feels heavy. But it is also symbolic. The heavy needle represents the weight of her responsibilities and restrictions. It is not the needle that is heavy, but the operations that she carries within herself. Line 7. The massive weight of Uncle's wedding band. It is the most symbolic line in the entire poem. The wedding band, that is, the ring Aunt Jennifer wears. It is described as massive, which means very heavy. In reality, a wedding ring is light, but here it represents something else. It symbolizes the burden of her marriage, the authority of her husband, and the male dominated system in which she lives. It is the weight of expectation, control, and duty that she has been forced to carry all her life. Line 8. Sits heavily upon Aunt Jennifer's hand. The ring is not just on her hand, it sits heavily, almost like a chain. Her hand, which should be free to create, it weighed down by this symbol of bondage. Through this image, the poet shows how the institution of marriage, instead of being a relationship of love and equality, has become a form of domination for Aunt Jennifer. Her creativity struggles against this invisible weight. Thus, the second stanza shows a sharp contrast between the freedom of the tigers and the helplessness of Aunt Jennifer. Her real world is full of fear and subjugation, while her imaginary world is full of confidence and courage. Stanza 3. Now, Adrienne Rich looks beyond Aunt Jennifer's present life into the time after her death. This stanza is deeply moving and full of symbolism. Come to line 9. When Aunt is dead, her terrified hands will lie. It suggests that even after death, Aunt Jennifer's hands will remain terrified. This shows that fear and oppression have become so deeply ingrained in her being that even death cannot completely free her from them. The hands that once trembled while sewing will now lie still, yet the memory of fear will remain. Line 10. Still, ringed with ordeals, she was mastered by. The word ringed here has two meanings. First, it refers to the wedding ring, the physical ring around her finger. Second, it means surrounded or enclosed. So, even in death, Aunt Jennifer will remain surrounded by the ordeals, which means the hardships, the troubles, and the control. Control that ruled her life. In this line, the phrase she was mastered by is very significant. It means she was dominated and controlled by her husband and by the patriarchal system. The word mastered, it suggests complete submission. She never truly gained independence. Line 11. The tigers in the panel that she made. Here, the poet turns our attention back to the tigers, the creation of her art. These tigers live on the fabric she embroidered. They are part of her imagination and creativity. Line 12. Will go on prancing, proud and unafraid. The final line is very powerful and symbolic. While Aunt Jennifer will die still bound by fear, her tigers will continue to move proudly and fearlessly forever. They will outlive her physical life. They are eternal symbols of freedom, courage, and strength. Qualities that Aunt Jennifer could only express through her art. This ending shows that art is a form of liberation. Even when a person's life is controlled, their creative expression can carry their true spirit forward. Through her embroidery, Aunt Jennifer has given shape to her unspoken desires. Her tiger become her voice, a voice that remains fearless and alive long after she is gone. Now, dear students, After understanding the poem line by line, let us take a closer look at the symbols, literary devices, and themes that Adrienne Rich uses to deepen the meaning of Aunt Jennifer's tigers. Now, talking about symbols, Adrienne Rich was a poet who believed that poetry should communicate more than surface meaning. Every object in this poem is symbolic. Through these symbols, she conveys powerful ideas about freedom, fear, and womanhood. The first symbol that has been used in the poem is the tigers. The tigers are not just animals stitched on a cloth, they are symbols of strength, courage, and confidence. They live fearlessly in their world of green. They represent the qualities Aunt Jennifer wishes she had. Those are independence, pride, and self expression. The tigers move freely, unlike Aunt Jennifer, who is trapped in fear. They are her alter ego, the bold side of her personality that society never allowed her to show. The second symbol used in the poem is the wedding band. The wedding band or ring is one of the most powerful images in the poem. Although a ring is usually a sign of love and commitment, here it becomes a symbol of oppression. It is described as massive and heavy. It represents the weight of patriarchal authority and the burden of married life. It shows that Aunt Jennifer's marriage has limited her freedom, turning what should have been a bond of affection into a mark of control. The third symbol is Aunt Jennifer's hands. Her hands are trembling, weak, and they are burdened. They reflect her life of fear and subservience. But these same hands also create beautiful art. So they become a symbol of struggle between repression and creativity. Even though she is powerless in her daily life, her hands still produce something that is brave and beautiful. Coming to the fourth symbol used in the poem is the embroidery or the panel. The panel is the canvas of Aunt Jennifer's imagination. It represents her inner world, her dreams, her artistic expression. On that piece of cloth, she creates the life she cannot live. It becomes her secret space of freedom where her spirit is released. The embroidery shows how art becomes a means of liberation, a way to express what cannot be said in words. Talking about the fifth symbol in this poem is the color imagery. Adrienne Rich carefully uses colors like bright topaz and green. Topaz, which is a golden color, suggests warmth, brightness, and vitality. These are the qualities of the tigers. Green represents life, growth, and nature. Now, these colors contrast with Aunt Jennifer's pale and trembling hands. These highlights the difference between her real life and her imaginative world. Coming to the sixth and the last symbol of this poem is death and continuity. Even after Aunt Jennifer's death, her tigers continue to prance proudly. This is symbolic of the idea that art and creativity outlive human life. Her spirit, though oppressed in reality, achieves immortality through her artistic creation. So, each symbol in the poem, the tigers, the ring, the hands, the embroidery, speaks of the contrast between fear and freedom, between subjugation and self expression. Now, let us turn to the literary devices used in the poem. Adrienne Rich employs various poetic techniques that give the poem its beauty and power. Let us first talk about the first literary device, that is imagery. Now, imagery is the use of descriptive language that appeals to our senses. When Adrienne Rich writes, bright topaz denizens of a world of green, here we can clearly see golden tigers moving in a lush green forest. The visual imagery is vivid and lively. It makes the art come alive before our eyes. Coming to the second literary device, that is symbolism. Almost every object in this poem is symbolic. The tigers, the ring, the trembling hands. Through these, Rich expresses her inner conflict of a woman torn between duty and desire. Third literary device is contrast or juxtaposition. It is one of the most striking features of this poem. The fearless tigers are set against the fearful Aunt Jennifer. The lightness of art contrasts with the heaviness of marriage. The freedom of imagination stands against the chains of real life. This contrast helps the reader feel the intensity of Aunt Jennifer's struggle. Fourth one is alliteration. Now, alliteration is the repetition of consonant sounds at the beginning of words. For example, finger fluttering, or if we say prancing proud, and chivalric certainty. This device adds musical rhythm and makes certain ideas stand out. Now, fifth one is my favorite, that is metaphor. A metaphor is a comparison made directly without using like or as. For example, massive weight of uncle's wedding band. It is a metaphor for the heavy burden of marriage and patriarchal control. It turns an ordinary object into a deep symbol of oppression. The sixth one is personification. In this poetry, the tigers are personified. They are given human qualities like bravery and pride. They prance and pace in chivalric certainty. This personification gives life to Aunt Jennifer's imagination and reflects her unspoken strength. Seventh literary device used in this poem is irony. There is a gentle but powerful irony in the poem. Aunt Jennifer, who is timid and weak, creates creatures that are bold and strong. Her own hands are bound by a heavy ring, yet her art expresses complete freedom. This irony deepens the emotional impact of the poem. Eighth and the last poetic device that I can find out is enjambment. Enjambment is when a sentence continues from one line of poetry to the next without a pause. For example, the massive weight of Uncle's wedding band sits heavily upon Aunt Jennifer's hand. Now, this technique makes the line flow naturally, mirroring the smooth movement of the tigers and the continuity of life. Through all these literary devices, Adrienne Rich builds a poem that is delicate in language but strong in message. Now let us discuss the major themes of Aunt Jennifer's Tigers. Now, theme 1, that is oppressions of women. The poem reflects how women in a patriarchal society are burdened by responsibilities and control. Aunt Jennifer's life is dominated by her husband and by social expectations. Her fear and trembling show how deeply oppression can affect a person's identity. Second theme is the desire for freedom and self expression. Through her embroidery, Aunt Jennifer expresses what she cannot say aloud. The tigers represent her secret longing for independence, confidence, and dignity. Her art becomes the space where she feels free, even though her real life is restricted. Talking about next theme, that is the contrast between art and life. In real life, Aunt Jennifer is weak and timid, but in her art, she creates strong and fearless creatures. This shows the difference between external reality and inner imagination. Art becomes her escape, her true identity. The fourth theme that I can find out is patriarchy and gender roles. The poem criticizes the social system that gives men power and expects women to obey silently. The massive wedding band. It stands for the social structures that limit women's choices and freedom. Adrienne Rich highlights how marriage in such a system can become a tool to control. Talking about fifth theme, that is the power and immortality of art. Even after Aunt Jennifer's death, her tigers remain alive, and they remain alive, proud, and unafraid. This shows that art is timeless. It preserves the emotions and imagination of the artist long after life has ended. Aunt Jennifer's courage expressed through her art outlives her physical existence. The sixth theme of this poetry is courage versus fear. Throughout the poem, fear and courage are placed side by side. Aunt Jennifer's hands tremble with fear, but her tigers move with pride and certainty. The poem celebrates the courage that survives even within fear, the spirit that refuses to die. And the last theme of this poem is the role of imagination. Adrienne Rich suggests that imagination is not escape but strength. Through her creative vision, Aunt Jennifer builds a world of freedom that reality could never give her. Her imagination becomes her form of resistance. Now, in conclusion, Adrienne Rich's Aunt Jennifer's Tigers is a short poem with vast meaning. It uses simple language and domestic images like tigers, rings, embroidery, and they are used to comment on the deep social issue of women's freedom. Through symbols, contrasts, and artistic imagery, the poem portrays the conflict between fear and courage, subjugation and self expression. I hope you understand the poem well. Thank you.